Hi, guys.
First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the resistance, right? Because we're the force before the force. Because there's so many people out there trying to tell us it comes in a pill bottle or an RX pad, and you're out there proving what we're doing is right. So as I start today's little exercise that we're going to do, you should be really proud of yourselves for doing this, because the masses, right, they're lining up, they're queuing up to take a drug that they think is going to solve their problem. But what I want to show you here today is that, number one, I can talk about more things than BrainTap, for those that know me, that I had a franchise company for over 30 years, the world's largest self-help franchise, and we did a lot. Some of you in the audience have heard me speak for up to 5 days in a row, so we're going to get 2 hours compressed. And what I thought of, what could I teach biohackers to unlock their brain's potential that will leave you changed today? That's my mission for you. So I'm going to ask, is everybody here willing to pay at 100%? Everybody here willing to play at 100%? Say yes. Okay. One of the things, I love it when people say, I want to get rid of stress. No, you don't. You want to master stress. You want the capacity to handle the most stress that the world can throw at you, because those are the people that are going to succeed in the coming years that are to come, because we're only at the very infancy of this revolution, really, of what's going on. And so today I'm going to challenge you with some things, but I want you to know that everything that I talk about is backed by science. We've done research, we've proven it. So you don't have to believe what I say today, but just know that you can have all the beliefs you want on Sunday morning. This is about science and what happens. You are different. And when I said you're going to change today, you can't help but change. Everyone in this room has already changed just by watching the video, just by sitting in the chair, just by sitting next to people. And hopefully by the time we're done, you're going to understand what I'm talking about there. But we're going to do something, there's something that we call brain priming. Has everyone ever heard that term? A lot of people don't understand that your brain needs different brain waves to be trained at different times of the day. The same meditation you do in the morning is not the same meditation you do in the afternoon. It's not the same meditation you do in the evening, because if you do, you're training your brain that all of life is the same all the time, and that's not true. You are personally changing all the time. In the morning, we need to train brain waves that stimulate cortisol, norepinephrine, dopamine. If we engage those same brain waves at night, we're not going to be sleeping. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how this biological system can work with our internal systems of the body. The most powerful pharmacy on earth is not at Walgreens or Walmart and all these other places. The most powerful pharmacy is between your ears, and we're going to activate it today. Number one, to remove fear. Number two, to get you to activate your true self, who you are, because inside of each one of you is a genetic memory of what brought you to this place of being. You were there at the moment of the Big Bang, or you wouldn't be here now. Every generation that came before you added to you to bring you to this moment in time. And what we're going to do is we're going to activate something called neuroplasticity. So when you think about neuroplasticity, this is how the brain actually rewires itself. We can't measure every neuron connection right now in neuroscience, but what we can measure is the energy that the brain has. So I'm going to teach you a little exercise, and they're going to play some music in the background that has an algorithm in it that's been, how many people here know what a binaural beat is, isochronic tone, these kind of things? Well, back in the 80s, when I invented the first portable light and sound machine, nobody had really heard about that. When we went to conferences, in fact, one of the biggest conferences we go to for doctors, which is usually who I'm speaking to, they wouldn't even let me in that conference because they thought it was just garbage. It was not true. Well, in 2020, they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award because they found out that we need to downregulate the nervous system and get recovery. And so you can even brain prime after a workout. And what we know is if you do, you're going to have more neuroplasticity. You're also going to have more muscle growth, because acetylcholine at the mind-muscle junction is like blood doping. You get to build more muscle in less time, energy, and effort because you've done that. So what I want to do today is I want to prime you first for this presentation. So I want you to put your pins down, put your pads down, put your feet flat on the floor. How many people have ever heard of something called the Silva method? Okay, my dad was one of the very first instructors of the Silva method. I grew up doing a practice like what I'm going to teach you. And so imagine you're a 12-year-old kid. I'm really good at being a troublemaker. In fact, Sister Barbara loved me so much, she had me in her class 2 years in a row. That's the way that it worked. And I know it's because she loved me, not because I was a dumb kid. But what I realized is once my dad taught me to start using my whole brain, I became an honor roll student. And I didn't do anything about learning. I did it all about sports. I visualized myself playing baseball or wrestling or whatever the sport was, football. And all of those things changed the way that my brain operated in the one area that my dad wanted me to fix, which was school. So that he wasn't embarrassed, he had to come and see the teachers all the time. This was a neuroplastic change that happened. A change in the way my brain processed information, and it starts with the way you think about your day. So as you think about this, each one of you have a book, a person, a seminar, something that you can go back and remember today, that when you heard it, you said, there's something about that sparked a flame within you that said, I've got to go learn more about taking care of myself. I don't know what it was. For me, if you read my first book called Awaken the Genius, it was a whole book about accelerated learning. It was a book called As a Man Thinketh. And my dad, when I would get in trouble when I was a young kid, 12 years old, I had to go to my room, read that book. It only took a half hour, maybe less than that. And I had to go up and convince my dad that, first of all, I read it. At first, I wasn't really reading it. But when you read it every day over the summer, you get pretty good at reading that book. And I had to go up and tell him how I was going to apply those principles, because faith without works is dead. That's what neuroplasticity is. You can't do the work and then not do the work. When I'm talking about the work, I'm talking about meditation. Some people call it the practice. So what I want you to do, your feet flat on the ground, your hands in your lap. I'm going to have you roll your eyes up as if you're looking through your brow chakra. You might begin to notice a light. This is your own inner light. Every cell, every system, every organ is communicating in light. Your own biophotic system. This is a system of the body that's changing who and what you are based on the people sitting at your table, based on the food you had for breakfast, based on the motivation you had to be here. Every system, every cell, every DNA strand in your body changes every 40 seconds. So tune into that light. And as you tune in, take a deep breath in and then hold that breath. Experience that breath. Become aware of that breath. And then let it go with a sigh. And as you let go of any outside sounds, any experiences, any thoughts about what brought you here, delays or luggage, people. This is about you. All outside experiences begin to dissipate as you move inside and focus on you. You are a powerful individual. So tune into your inner power. And as you tune into that power, it's very easy. Think of the things you love to do and imagine them in bright, brilliant color. Imagine your favorite music and play that along with the binaural beats and the gamma training that's happening in the background. Tuning your brain to a frequency of learning so your eyes can see, your ears can hear, and your body can now experience a higher level of knowing. That knowing is you. So imagine you made a choice, a decision to be here right now, sitting in this room with all of these individuals. And maybe you knew, or maybe you're just learning now. But what I say is only 1/10 of what you're going to learn. You're going to learn it from the energy in the room, from those at your table, those in the back of the room, those behind the stage. They all have energy. It's broadcasting a frequency. You are broadcasting a frequency. To shift your attention from your eyes down to your heart. Tune in for a moment on your heart. At the core of every heart beats success. You have your own success frequency. Like tuning to a radio station, you're tuning in to you. You are a powerful being, able to learn in an accelerated way, with resources you didn't know you had, triggered by external experiences you didn't anticipate, but you're here now. So imagine with each beat of the drum of your heart that you're broadcasting that frequency out to the people at your table, so that all that you know, they know, and all that they know, you begin to know. You begin to create a space, a place that's safe for learning. That's why we're here, to learn that we're not alone, that we're all in this together, and no one gets out of here alive. So as you feel this room with energy and light, imagine what you will take from this experience. From my talk, to the DNA talk, to the booths that you'll visit, to the conversations you'll have at lunch and dinner. Imagine all of that energy if you could project your mind forward in time, just a few days. Imagine the thought of getting on that airplane, and your mind is filled with ideas and concepts about your health, your personal journey, your discovery of you. And you discover that you are far greater than you've been led to believe. Activating internal resources, allowing you to improve those things that you can and embrace those things that you have no choice over. And it amplifies your light. And this light begins to expand out into the room so that whatever you need to do during this workshop, you're freeing yourself to do. You're able to stretch your imagination, stretch your physical awareness, stretch who you are, because you'll never return to who you were. Let that go. There is no sense in dragging the past into the future. Imagine in your mind's eye that you're cutting the ties to past beliefs and concepts that no longer serve you. You are a genius. You have skills and talents that you haven't even begun to use. But as you do, as in Roman mythology, they will call you a genius. So imagine those skills when you land home or you drive across town. Wherever you go is your home base. Imagine that all that you learn from this conference is teeming and radiating in the cells of your body as energy. Your mitochondria is broadcasting that information out to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers, and they know that something magical happened within you. You allowed it to happen. You expected it to happen, and then you allowed yourself to experience it happening through you, because life no longer happens to you. Life happens through you. And as you bring that experience with you back into the room, notice the way your hands and feet feel. And if they feel a little tingly, that's fine. If they feel light, that's all right. If you feel a little heaviness, that's perfectly natural. But whatever you feel, this sensation, this feeling is unique for you. In Silva, we would call this feeling level. So imagine you're going to your own level. And whether you count down like we would do, counting 3, physically letting go of all physical stress, 2, allowing your mind to align with the highest principles and processes, and 1, recognizing you are the one. You are the one you've been waiting for. Imagine that true inner light of who you are steps into the experience, and you're there. It's broadcasting and teeming with energy. You are safe, you are loved, and you are honored. And when you're ready to show up at this presentation as the 100% real you, ready to learn, grow, and develop, do whatever it takes to get to that next level of evolution, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I want you to count to yourself 1 to 3. And when you get to the number 3, just simply say to yourself, wide awake, feeling fine and in perfect health, feeling better than ever before, and then give a smile to the world and get a smile in return. Feel your shoulders roll back, your chin roll upward, and feel that you have arrived now. And now that you're here, we can begin the conversation. So slowly return into the room, and when you're here, just simply feel your shoulders roll back, your eyes open, focusing on the screen. And I have this image up here because the truth is that you are not physical. You've never been physical. No matter how hard you try to be physical, it will never happen. There's more space in you and also in the known physical universe than there is solidness. In fact, if we could go down to the smallest particle and look out of our body, it would represent the galaxy. they've now proven that the neuron connections in our brain mimic the cells, systems, and structures of the universe. So as you activate that, I want you to know that you are not a physical being, you are a light being. That's why in the hall over here, we're going to have a lot of activities, activations we call them, that are going to activate your nervous system. And you can stop the music now, we're done with the meditation. In the process here of activating your nervous system, there's three primary parts of the nervous system that we want to talk about today. And as we go through it, and you're going to go through all of them today, one is, of course, your parasympathetic system. Now, this is the part of the system that we want to activate, but not too much, because if we activate too much, we have to move to California and just surf and hang out on the beach because it's all relaxing. Now, there's another part of our nervous system called the sympathetic system that we need to activate, because you won't learn, grow, or develop without the sympathetic system. But if you activate that too much, you got to move to New York and be in a hurry, going everywhere that you want to go. So if you kind of think of those two things, there's also another part of the body that most people leave out of the nervous system equation. It's the neurohormonal system. And that's the part that's breaking down out there in the world that we see. Because whatever the weakest link in your physical body is, that's where your electrical system is going to break down. The electrical system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic system, are all part of something called the biophotonic system. So when you think about the biophotonic system, when I was interviewing Dave on that little brief, you saw a little brief part of him talking there, that was on my Brain Summit. We had 75 great speakers, almost 150,000 people watching it, and he told me about this system called the biophotonic exchange, and I'd never heard about that. This was 3 years ago. I said, man, I thought I knew everything about this. You know how we get kind of an attitude about things. So after that call, I got online and started researching it, and I realized that something happened. If you're like me, I grew up in a family where my mother took care of us because my dad was out finding out how to destroy his body constantly. He was a very gifted alcoholic. And luckily, he went to a Silva night, and Silva taught him to relax, and he never drank again. And he said, hey, if this helped for me, I'm going to help my family. There were 9 of us in our family, and none of us have an alcohol problem because we learned at an early age to change our brain. Our formatting of our brain isn't dictated by our parents. In fact, what they showed back in 2003 when they said, hey, we've mapped the human genome, everybody's heard of that? And the reality is they map 1%. So you could imagine if you're a medical doctor and you're going to go set for your boards and you get only 1% right and they still pass you, that would never happen. But in science, I guess that's all right. Well, in 2017, they found out the reason they couldn't measure that 99% that they call junk DNA is because it changes every 40 seconds. You personally change every DNA strand in your body. Every pair changes every 40 seconds. So who you are now is nothing near what you're going to be in the future if you keep biohacking, keep doing these things. Physically, we believe that you have to eat right because you can't outthink a bad diet. Now, if somebody out there is doing a course like on St. Germain where we can manifest candy bars into healthy, protein bars, then I'm all in for that. But that's not going to happen. Number 2, we need to move and breathe. That's why we believe in things like Tai Chi and yoga and dancing, or just walking. Get your nervous system working, right? Here's one fact that most people don't know. They just did a study. If you sit down for 3 hours, you've reduced the amount of oxygen in your brain by 10%. It's not only worse than smoking, it is truly worse than smoking. When they say it's the next smoking, it's really worse than smoking. Smoking didn't do that. So we need to get up and move and breathe. Number 3, you have to do some kind of brain fitness. Now, I'm not saying you have to do BrainTap, but you see almost every one of the big biohackers use BrainTap because it's easy. I'm not going to talk the whole time about BrainTap, but I think people that haven't, how many people in here have never used BrainTap or never tried it before? I can't see everybody. So we have stations over here. They're going to be here all weekend. Even after today's event, we'll stay open until like 6 o'clock so some people can try it. You have to try it because if you don't ever experience it, you never know. But because we're not going to have enough time for everyone, I'm going to show you what that kind of looks like. So I'm going to give you a virtual BrainTap session right now. So if you took what I just did and you put this headset on, what's happening here is light is going into the eyes. The reason that the light is going into the eyes, your eyes are closed, but it's something called biophotonic exchange. So the way your cells work, just to make it simple, is let's say you're a cell and you have a mitochondria there. Mitochondria is a bacteria that absorbs and transmits light. That's its job. And so it's going to take that light and it's going to absorb it into the cell. Now, if that cell already has enough energy, it says, you know what, it's not like us in America here where we go get a storage shed. We have so much stuff, we got to go buy storage, and then when that storage fills up, we got to buy another storage, and we got to buy another storage. And some people, it's represented on their body, right? My dad was 400 pounds. My mother was 350. Obviously, they had enough energy around them to stay alive for a year or two. But the problem was they didn't know how to activate it. But what happens with light energy, it will keep sharing until the body is totally full. So how do we get light into the brain? One of the best ways is through the eyes, because your eyes are not just attached to your brain, your eyes are your brain. And your eyes have the most condensed mitochondria in your body to absorb that light. So your eyes are closed, but it's absorbing the light energy, not the color. It's absorbing the light energy, and it's using the nerves in the spine to trick the brain into thinking that it needs to be aware. Because if you imagine the primitive reflex in the brain, when you were sleeping in the cave, how did you know to wake up? Light came into the cave. So we have receptors for this. You are here because your ancestry had the right receptors for light and noticed things moving. They didn't get eaten by that saber-toothed tiger or whatever. Now, the other thing that as you do that is, what's another way to get light into the brain? The ears. Your ears, the blood in your ears takes about 3 to 4 minutes to clear. While it's there, light energy will be absorbed by the hemoglobin, circulated into the brain, which is keeping the brain at a constant temperature. Your ears do that. So the blood goes in and out of the brain through the ears, regulating its temperature. So if you want to bring light into it, now if you're using a red light panel, that's always good too, but it doesn't change your brainwave. We're actually changing the frequencies. The ear lights have something called Nogier frequencies. There's 7 frequencies in your body. If they're all in alignment, you are healthy. If they're not, you're unhealthy. We have different frequencies we put in the eyes. We call those earth frequencies, and maybe we'll get to talking about them in a little bit. My talk, the talk that I do in the university talk, I'll talk more about that. But what's happening is this light's coming in, but it's teeming with energy and information in the form of frequencies. Now, when that light gets into the brain, if one of your cells is about to die, that cell will absorb the light energy. This is what it's designed to do. The mitochondria will absorb that light energy. It will restart the Krebs cycle. It will remember its mission. What does it do? That cell isn't supposed to die. If we could keep it detoxed, give it energy and light, your cells would live forever. But because there's a lot of toxins in this environment, they don't always do that. Now, what we also do is we have some of our sessions, over 2,000, have words in them. Because guess what? Your best thinking brought you here. But your best thinking isn't getting you out of here. You've got to upgrade, and you don't have to pay Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. You have your own operating system. Each one of you has your own operating system. Now, mom, dad, brother, sister, preacher, teacher, those are the people that programmed you. At about 7 or 8 years old, when you spit your food out and you got angry and you started to control your own life, you thought you were in control, but you were only controlling a program that was written by somebody else. You get a chance every day, especially every morning, to rewrite your destiny. Because when you wake up in the morning, it's a new day. But some people wake up, you know, those bumper stickers, SSDD, right? Same stuff, different day, I think is what it means, right? So when you think about that, what is it doing to your brain? It's never the same. You can't walk, our body is like a river, and there's a proverb, you can never step into the same river twice. Because your body is changing at every 40 seconds, every DNA pair. That's not to mention your cells, 50,000 cells per second. You know, your body, nobody in this room is older than 2 years old. It doesn't mean to act like you're a 2-year-old, but that's the way it works, right? So we want to show you how to activate the brain. So how do we know this works? First of all, we do science. So what happened during COVID? People got stressed out because they had to go back to work. So we took the 1%ers at Microsoft and Google. These were the 1%. They measure every keystroke these guys do. And what we found out was when we tested them that they were depressed. They were anxious. They were 1%ers, which meant they were the top producers, but they never regulated their brain. And what I told them was one thing. I said, we can only test one thing. Let's have them do a session at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Those of you that don't know that the light from the sun doesn't just power Superman, it powers you. It tells your cells what to do. For instance, if you don't get to bed before 10 o'clock, you don't produce as much melatonin. And it has nothing to do with the light you're exposed to. It can for some people who are compromised, but the 2 hours before 12 give you 4 hours of actual melatonin production. If you wait till after 12, you don't have the same rays of the sun that are educating the cells of what to do. Anybody in here fly here? I'm going to show you something in this presentation that might blow your mind, because it doesn't matter how good you are. As Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit. So what we did with these guys is we took this test with Julie Arndt, who is already a successful burnout teacher. She teaches people how not to be burned out, and we added BrainTap to it. They only had to listen once a day at 2 o'clock because your temperature drops 2 degrees every day at 2 o'clock. So most people run out to coffee, tea, and chocolate. I'm not opposed to those things, but if you do it every day, your brain is an energy hog. It's going to say, wow, you're doing this for me. I don't have to do it anymore. So 20% of the energy your brain takes up while you're sleeping, 25% while you're awake. What would really be valuable is take a little break, because that's what we're designed to do. These bodies can be, all of our bodies can be, if we go back genetically, we all were on the Serengeti. What do they do on the Serengeti at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? They take a nap. We don't have time to take a nap. So we wanted them to do a 20-minute BrainTap session based on Julie Arndt's work in peak performance. What happened? They had a 45% reduction in stress just by doing that one session. They actually told us that it felt like they had 2 mornings now, because you get more work done in the morning than any other time of the day. Most people, some people are a little different. They think they're night owls, but if you really measured their results, I've never found anybody in 35 years that actually did better at night than they do in the morning. That's when your brain's the sharpest, the glymphatic system hopefully had worked through you, cleaned out the brain, you're ready for action. This was the one that blew their minds. 71% reduction in depression scores. These guys, the reason they were having burnout was they didn't know they were depressed. They were so busy being busy, doing, they didn't realize recovery is so important. Anybody here ever heard of a guy named Tom Brady? Okay, Tom Brady chose BrainTap because he wanted the best way to recover after workouts. Now we're doing a deal with Tom Brady. We're going to be part of TB12 because we've done the science. It doesn't matter how hard you work at your biohacking. If you're not working on your brain, you're losing out. So number 3, sleep quality improved. Your time of sleep is your incubator for your superpowers. Every one of you has a power. And I guarantee you, if you're not sleeping well, you're not activating that power. We all have a kryptonite out there too. So we got to figure out what that kryptonite is and avoid it at all costs. And focus on those things that we want to improve. So when you think about this, these were already the top 1% performers at Microsoft and Google, and they had a 26% increase in performance. We didn't teach them how to do their job. We didn't tell them anything. All we did was say, take a 20-minute break. And busy people go, you know, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to BrainTap. You don't have time not to. You can get more work done, be more efficient, be there for your family, your friends, your coworkers than ever before, because if you just keep grinding through it, sure, you can grind through it, but at the end of the day, you've given it all up, and when it's your time, you have no time. A lot of people feel like they're dragging a parachute around all day, and they do it all, they have the nice smile, and then they get home and they crash and burn on the couch. That might be why you're here, because that happens to a lot of people. I think that this part here is really important. 41% more positive mindset. This is key. Now, I believe there's a mental health tsunami, right, or pandemic or whatever we got going on, because what did they do? They got us to remove ourselves from everyone. You're in this room, you're building oxytocin without doing anything, just being in this room. You're looking around going, hey, I'm not alone. Hey, I'm here with a bunch of people improving their life. Your oxytocin's going through the roof. You wonder why you're high at night and you won't be able to sleep unless you have your BrainTap in your room. Is because your body is so teeming with energy. You just met somebody, you go, my whole life I've been looking for this person, and you met them at lunch, let's say, because you never know who you're going to meet here. I can tell you that's why I come to this conference and I stay for the whole thing. Unlike some conferences, I just fly in and fly out. This is the conference where you're going to meet that person who tested it on themselves and proved the system worked, and then shared it with the community. So we're going to do a little exercise. How many people have ever thought, man, my psychologist sucks? You know, and I'm a psychologist, and I believe they all suck too. Talk therapy has never had a statistical advantage, which means when you go through psychoanalysis, and all of this thing. They've never had a study better than 12%. To me, that's ridiculous, right? The reason is they keep talking about the problem. Most of my clients already mastered the problem. They didn't need me to tell them about it. They wanted to know about the solution. So we're going to do a little exercise. So what I'm going to ask you to do, you're going to pair up, get with people, you're going to get in pairs of 2. Okay, so we're going to do some work here today. Okay, remember we all said we're going to play hard, right? Yes? Okay, so get with your partner. You're going to have a partner, 1 and 2, and one of you is going to be the therapist. Okay, so you're going to be the doctor. Does anybody know what it takes to be a good doctor? What? Listening. Anybody else? It takes 2 things: gray hair and hemorrhoids. Okay, so gray hair for the distinguished look and hemorrhoids for the concerned look. Okay, so what I want you to do is one of you is going to be the doctor. So pick out doctor out of your group. Pick out who's going to be, and turn your chair so you're facing each other. It might be easier. So does everybody have the doctor in the group? Anybody missing somebody? I can't really see out there because the lights are in my eyes. So the doctor, you're going to listen. Somebody said that. To be a good doctor, my dad, when he first taught me to be a therapist, he said, God positioned us perfectly. We have 1 mouth and 2 ears. That's so we can listen twice as much as we talk. Okay? So you're going to be the doctor. You're going to be listening. Now, as a doctor, though, the only thing you're going to be able to do is say the word blah. So no matter what they tell you, no matter what that client says, your brain just responds, blah. Now you can use all 88% of nonverbal communication, blah, 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 blah. You understand? Does everybody understand that? If I don't want to hear any English out of the doctors, okay? I just want to hear blah. 1 word, all the emotion you can put into it. You're going to be helping draw out of that patient their pain and suffering. Now, those of you that are going to be the patient here, as a patient, I want you to think of something that just pisses you off. I mean, when it just triggers you, it lights you up. And when you think of that, you're going to get a chance today. This is biohacking, so we're going to hack your psychology. So what I want you to do, this is your chance to unload on that doctor. Okay, does everybody get that? And I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Does everybody understand the assignment? Is everybody ready? Does everybody have something that pisses them off? Okay, I forgot. Those of you that are going to tell them about all your things you're mad about and upset about, you can use 88% of nonverbal communication, but you can only use 1 word. Blah, 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 blah. Does everybody understand the assignment? I don't want to hear any words other than blah. And I want you to start now. Therapy's in session. Go ahead. Do it. Okay, freeze. So there's a saying the Buddha had, he who angers you conquers you. And I used to tell my kids all the time, don't give away your remote control to somebody else. There are people that give you that look. You might even be married to them. You know, or you have that family member that says that 1 word, or that sister-in-law or brother-in-law that does this one thing, and they ruin your evening because you allowed them to. Not because they had any power to do so. You gave them the power. You gave them the remote control. So what we want to do now, because it's always, we have to give and take in this universe, so we're going to switch. So does everybody get the assignment? Now, doctors that are going to now be the patient, really let it go. I mean, that was like lame. I mean, you got to really go for it. Blah, 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 blah. You know, this is your chance to unload whatever that is that you've been holding on to that made you so angry and so upset. Okay, so let's switch places. So now the patient is the doctor. So you're going to begin now. All right, go ahead and turn your chairs back this way. As you come back, notice how your physiology feels now. What happens with modern psychology is we get really good at analyzing our problem. And the brain thinks, wow, you're spending all this time on the problem. You must want to do it more. No. The way I explained to my patients when I was in practice, I said, you know all those bad memories and those things you talk about all the time? We've heard it called stinking thinking before. You probably heard that. And they go, well, what do I do about that time that this happened to me or that happened to me or whatever happened to me? I said, all those experiences aren't real. They've been processed by you. by your experiences that moment. And every time you brought them back, you revivified them. You brought them back to life. You ran the neurons, because those neurons that fire together wire together. You just unwired them. Laughter is one of the best ways to disengage bad programming. And it's not useful anyway. So think of this. All those bad memories are like going out to dinner with a friend. And you had a great conversation. You said, hey, I couldn't eat all my food. We were talking so well, so give me a to-go bag. And when you got that takeaway bag, you didn't write on there the date, you didn't write what it was, but you put it in the refrigerator. That's the subconscious. You just put it in there. Later, you're going to deal with it. And you don't. And every day you open up the refrigerator, you see it, it gets pushed further and further back into the refrigerator until soon it's just out of view. You don't even see it anymore. And then somebody's coming to visit that you think might open your refrigerator, and it's kind of stinking in there. You don't know exactly what it is, but you decide. This is one of those times when in my house it'd be, my wife says, you're going to the dump? Get the refrigerator. You know, let's clear all that out, right? And a lot of it's, you know, whatever. It could be kale if you're eating that in the back of the, right, with Dave. You just never ate it after you heard him talk, and it's in the back of the refrigerator. But whatever it is, it's there, and you pull it out. When you pull out that, remember, you didn't put the date on it. You didn't talk, didn't say what it was. You open it up, and it's green and fuzzy. What do you do with those leftovers? You throw them away. You don't send it off to CSI and say, can you please tell me who I was with when I was eating this meal? What we were talking about? Who made me do this? Why did I take it home? No, you just throw it out. It's junk. That's what all those bad memories are. They're not useful anymore. But our brain is designed to remember everything that is either a very high time or a very low time. We don't remember all the times in between because it's not meaningful. Our brain is trying to protect us. So the average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day, and 40,000 of them are negative to protect you. That's why you're here. But we're in a different age now. We don't need all that protection. We need to think differently. So how many people in here know something about affirmations, have heard about that? Okay. We, at our clinic and growing up, we used to read a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. It's a really great book to give you an idea. The problem is Louise Hay wrote those affirmations for her. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you how to activate your own affirmations, because your affirmations are different than my affirmations. And I'm going to show you how. We're going to do this as groups. So at the table, you can work together on this one. So what I want you to do, this is also in one of my earlier books. But what I tell people is that when you think about psychology and what it is, the science of knowing how we think, you have a certain motivation about work. There's something that drives your behavior. And what I want you to do as a group at the table, I'm going to give you, 30 seconds, a minute, just to share with each other. But what I want you to know, and I'm going to do a couple examples here before we start. So you're sitting right here, so you're volunteering. Right, I never ask anybody to do something if they didn't volunteer. So by volunteering, if I ask you what has to be present in a job for you to really enjoy it, what would you tell me? Besides money, what else would have to be there? Okay, happiness. What would have to be there for you? Satisfaction. What would have to be there for you?
Good friendship.
Okay, so if I had a job where you could have great friendship, happiness, in all these things, would you be interested in coming to apply for that job? Because these words drive emotion. Emotion drives behavior. If you just use an affirmation written by somebody else, it's not going to be what I call impact words. These are words that impact your consciousness, that might not have any influence over it. Now, as we go into political season here in the U.S., you're going to hear these words all the time because politicians know to use them. They don't mean anything to them, but they know how to get the masses moving because they'll move emotion. Emotion triggers a part of our brain called the amygdala that doesn't reason. It just justifies, because we make emotional decisions, then we justify it, right, with logic. So what I want you to do as a group, just get together with each other, just share what has to be present for you in a work environment for you to enjoy it. Just share those words, because I want you to hear those words from the different words that you have. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to a minute. Whatever has to be present for you in a job so you get up in the morning, hit the ground running. Got 15 seconds left. The reason you're verbalizing that word is you're going to take those circuits, we're going to activate them, because it's called neural priming. We want to prime the nervous system so that what I do next is going to work better. So if you can say whatever that word is, it's going to be even better for you. Okay, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, go ahead and turn back around here. Now, why would it be important for you to know? You can do this tonight if you're not with somebody else and you want to sit down and do some brainstorming, or do it when you're on your flight home. But just take a piece of paper out, put at the top, what has to be present in a job for me to enjoy it. Rank your top 6 to 7, and they're going to be your values. They're going to be what drives your behavior, what you spend your money on, what makes you happy is going to be part of that in your work, because we find satisfaction on doing. So we want to teach you how to have satisfaction by being just who you are. Just be who you are. But then remember, like my dad said, faith without works is dead. We've got to have action. So those affirmations need to take wings. We're going to do a little exercise in a moment for that. But if you want to change something, like let's say you want to lose weight and one of your words was satisfaction or autonomy or trust, then you would say in that affirmation, I'm at 195 pounds, and I trust my subconscious will keep me there forever. That's different than I'm 195 pounds. Those words are going to supercharge your affirmations, and they're going to make them work better for you. Now, one of the things that if you are a part of BrainTap, you're going to see I've been coming out with is 365 days of programming for you, because you have to become your own software engineer for the human mind. And it's going to be part of an email sequence for anybody who's part of BrainTap. I've already written it. I'm just putting it into the sequence so that those people can start to share it, because we have to feed our brain on a conscious level and on a subconscious level. When you have subconscious commitment, you get conscious commitment. That's what you need to think about. So if you don't have subconscious buy-in, which means if you don't believe it at the very core of who you are, if you get in the mirror and you say, I'm rich and famous, let's say, or whatever your affirmation is, but you don't believe it, your bullshit meter will go off. And that affirmation will not work for you. That's why you'll hear a lot of what I do is questions. What would it be like if you were a top biohacker? How would you recognize yourself if your body was running optimally, even if you had minimal sleep? What decisions would you make if you knew your body was a Ferrari instead of a 72 VW? You know, just putting whatever you wanted to. So the questions you ask of yourself are going to derive the neurology that shows up for you. So next thing is, I want you to think of for a minute, and I'm going to come over here because these guys just volunteered. What has to be present for you in a relationship for you to enjoy it? Attention. So you want attention in your relationship. What has to be present for you to have a good relationship? Challenges? Oh, intelligence. That's a good one. So as you think about this, now, why would you need these words? These words are the words that your subconscious needs to hear when you're talking about your relationship with your future or your relationship with the past. You've always made intelligent choices. What if you could go back and talk to that smaller you and say, hey, wow, with the knowledge you had available to you at the time, you've done pretty well. Let me share with you some new information. Now that little part of yourself, because believe it or not, your subconscious is no more educated than a fourth grader. I hear people all the time arguing with that fourth grader. Have you ever argued with a fourth grader? You don't win. Because Grampy, because. You know, that's all you hear. You don't hear they don't have to have a reason, because emotion doesn't have to have reasons. You know, so when you're thinking about emotional connection, for instance, what if you had an emotional connection with your future self that was so strong, so binding, that whatever tough decision you didn't make at the moment, you would make because no short-term gratification would end up being as good as the long-term benefit. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Now, if you want emotional connection, that would be good, because now you're picturing yourself with that emotional connection, because believe it or not, you're not going to be the same tomorrow, next week, next year. When you think about who you are today, and this happened to me when I went back to this was years ago, my 10-year high school reunion, and I got to meet my prom date again. You know, you might have saw that, and my wife was with me. And my prom date had a totally different experience than I did at that experience, because I only went on that prom date because my buddies arranged it. You know, and when it was over, I was back training. My big thing was sports. I didn't even care. So she had this big fantasy she had worked up in her mind, and I'm like, what is that? Because she had an emotional connection with something that wasn't real. So the more we start planning out our future, when you plan your future self, which you're planning right now, what does that future self look like? What does it sound like? How do you show up? So what I want you to do is just get in the group again. You're going to share again. I'm going to give you a minute to do this. Just share with the group what has to be present for you in a relationship. I just want to hear you to hear all the other things that come up for people, because if I just use those words, intelligence, emotional connection, you know, whatever that is, it might hit. Most of you might say, yeah, that's great, but your word drives more emotion, more energy, more behavior. So go ahead, start now. Get with your group, share whatever has to be present in a relationship for you to really enjoy it. I mean, when they call on the phone, you pick it up, you know. Now, again, this is something you can get on the plane. There's probably 5 or 6. This will tell you your values in a relationship. And if you have your spouse do it, or your girlfriend or boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever it is, you will find if they don't list some of your words with their words, that's probably why you're not getting along so well. Okay, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, go ahead and refocus back up front here. So one of the things when you start doing this with other people, you probably start to find, hey, it's getting easier for me to talk to my table. Better conversations, because you're talking about yourself. People love talking about themselves. But the reality is that because the energy's flowing, when you start using your words, when you start using those predicates and other things that we could go into, your body and brain make a connection that is very powerful. Now, I don't know about you, but I've met people, and we're going on to the next thing, the hobby. I had a brother-in-law, he's passed away now, but when I was visiting them in Michigan, where I grew up in Battle Creek, I was in their home, and I'm sleeping on the roll-out couch with my wife. It's my brother-in-law, and I see him walk out, and he's got his hunting equipment. I don't hunt, so I thought Rambo had walked through the living room. He's got all this equipment on, and then I see his little son. He's got all the same equipment. They all got a little Bowie knife. He's just got a littler Bowie knife. And then I see the littler son. He's got the whole outfit on. He's got a little tiny Bowie knife. And they go out hunting for the day, and we go and do whatever we're going to do. At dinner that night, we're having a conversation, and Russ looks at me and he says, Patrick, I'd really like to borrow some money. And I said, Russ, I saw you guys this morning. You must have $1,000 in hunting equipment that you guys wore out of here this morning. And then it struck me, it said, people will pay any amount of money for their hobby. They'll spend their cash, they'll spend all the money on their credit cards, they'll do everything. And I thought to myself, with my clients in my franchise, I said, what if we could get people to understand that you are your hobby? And then biohacking shows up. You're your hobby, right? You measure everything. You figure out what's going on, you know what's going on. But most people out there in the world don't get that. If you think about your own hobbies, and we'll go over here because I saw she just volunteered. What kind of hobby do you have? Karate. So what do you get out of karate?
Exercise and personal enjoyment.
So personal enjoyment. So I'm going to keep asking till I get an emotional response. So emotional enjoyment. So if I was somebody that when you're around me, you'd have emotional enjoyment, would you want to hang with me? Right. And if I knew her other words, I could get her to almost do anything that I wanted to. Because I could get her to do work, I could form a relationship, I could get her to think that when she's with me, I'm her hobby. Now, does this sound like maybe the TV does that to us? Yes. Marketers do this all the time. What is the hobby you do? Now, if you tell me you don't have a hobby, we're going to kick you out of here. And you got to go find a hobby. What's that? What is it? Oh, playing games. So when you're playing computer games, what does that do for you? Right, so you released your mind, and if you release your mind, what does that do for you? Right, so you disconnect. A lot of times hobbies are used for escaping, right? If we have unhealthy habits or hobbies, they start to destroy our biological system. If we have healthy hobbies, then they build us up. So when you think about your hobby, if you think about your life, any life goals you have, you need to put these in there. You have an emotional connection with your future self, whatever that is. You have a way, what if you could disassociate from everything you have, you have enough time, energy, and money to do whatever you wanted. Maybe it wouldn't be computer games, I'm hoping, because if you saw your brain on computer games, you might not play them as much. Looks like crack cocaine. I'm not kidding. We did an EAS sports program. We looked at their brains, and it's terrible. You should do that in short terms, and you should make sure you do BrainTap right after. And we're actually working on an HRV system that kids can wear, and when their HRV drops below a certain number, their game shuts off. And then they go do a BrainTap session. Yeah, thank you. You can clap on that, because I don't think we're going to get people not to play games, but they need to understand that they're in the soup. You know, if you didn't take Psychology 101, there were two frogs. One frog, they watch the water come to a boil, they tried to put it in the pan, the frog just jumped right out, said, the hell with that, I'm not getting in that boiling water. The other frog, they put it in there and brought it to a slow boil, and while it's getting warm, it's doing the backstroke, doing whatever it wanted, and pretty soon, it didn't realize it was dead. Because pain hurts, but stress kills. That is the worst brain stress I've ever seen. Because not only are you playing a game, your brain's trying to interpret 1 million pixels. Anybody here ever seen the show with he's an autistic or savant, Dustin Hoffman, and they drop toothpicks on the ground, and he goes, 1,273, Rain Man, yeah. So, you know, every one of you can do that. Your brain is doing that right now. But your brain actually is a filtering system that filters out almost everything. You only perceive less than 1% of reality. Less than 1%. Neuroscience will tell us that you make up 99% of what you experience every day. You make it up. Now, a perfect example, if you've ever been in a relationship like I have, you go out to the kitchen and you say, Cynthia, who's my wife, Cynthia, where's that salt shaker? It's right there on the stove. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. So finally she gets frustrated. She comes out, it's right here. Well, it wasn't there a minute ago. And it wasn't, because I didn't render it. We only render a very small amount on the sides, and life is happening so fast. We had the opportunity last year at the Biohacking Convention to scan Danica Patrick's brain. I don't know if you saw the little blurb we did on YouTube, but she had the most powerful brain we've ever measured. And somebody said, why do you think that is? I said, because she's driving at speeds we're not supposed to be able to do. You're not supposed to be able to drive over 170 miles an hour. She's driving at 200 miles an hour, so she's making shit up even faster. You know, but she's doing it right because she became a professional, right? So she had one of those gifted brains. That's why not everybody's behind one of those cars driving, right? There's certain things that you can do that other people can't do. But in order to upgrade your biological system, we need to upgrade our emotional system, because emotion drives your behaviors. And if you don't change your emotional system, it doesn't matter how much your intellectual system grows. And you probably noticed something during these pandemic times. It seemed like the most intelligent people became the stupidest, because there's a fine line between intelligence and emotional behaviors. And you can get anybody to do anything if you make them fearful enough. And that's why in the last half of our seminar here today, I'm going to work on your fear. We're going to get rid of that. Because fear is the number one thing that stops you as a human from being your full potential. Because fear will shut down your nervous system. It will shut down the way your brain processes, the energy that you produce, and the outcomes you expect. You are unlimited. When you walked into this room, it should have been boom. Boom! You know, you realize that when you walked in here, you arrived 18 feet before your physical body did. We can measure your heart rate variability from up to 18 feet away because you have something the National Institute of Health calls your biosphere. This is science now, it's not metaphysics. When we had Silva, we're looking at auras and we're watching energy around people, people thought we were nuts. If you grew up with me in my little town of Battle Creek, you'd come over to the Porterhouse and do an aura reading at night. We were crazy people. But it's the crazy people that change the world, right? And now science is proving all of this right. You can clap about that. That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, how many of your family, friends, and neighbors think you're crazy because you maybe drink protein in the morning or don't eat a meal? You know, I still remember my grandma when she was 92, she said to me, Patrick, I hope all this stuff is good. She made it a point every time I went to dinner with her, she'd have a hamburger and drink coffee. That's it. She didn't drink any water. She lived to be 92, so you can't argue with that. And I said, Grandma, where's all your friends? They're not around. You can't do that. Now, there's certain people that have superior genetics can get away with that, but the average person can't. So you have to think about, what are you doing that's going to produce the highest level of growth and achievement for you physiologically? So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do another integration. Because one thing about learning is that you can only learn so much. My dad used to have a saying, the brain can only absorb as much as the ass can withstand. So I want you to stand up for me for a moment. What I want you to do is just kind of shake it out a little bit, and I want you to balance on one foot. When you balance on that one foot, spin it in a circle, the other one. So the one that's in the air, you're going to spin it. And as you're spinning it, I want you to write your name in the air. And notice the laughter and things. Notice what's going on. So just figure out, now what I want you to notice as you're doing that is, when you're writing your name, look down at your foot. Is it still a circle, or does it go analog? Right? Or does your circle go and you forgot how to write your name? Okay, go ahead and sit down. If you were the person that was doing the circle and you forgot how to write your name, you happen to be one of these people we call emotionally charged individuals. When you get in an argument, you actually believe the louder you talk, the better the person on the other end hears. This is the way. In the other person, if you found that you were writing your name and your foot went analog, you actually think and believe in your heart of hearts that you can think your way out of your problem. But your thinking your best thinking brought you the problem you have today. So we need to teach you how to think differently using your physiology, your psychology, and your emotional intelligence. All of these three can be improved. You're not fixed. You know, if you were to talk to me in 2000, the belief was that you're born this way, this is the way it is, you're never going to change, your brain is fixed by the time you're 7 years old. How many people in here speak more than one language? Okay, you have a circuit in your brain that stays active, where those of us, like myself, that only learned one language until college and found out it's very difficult to learn a language in college, only has that circuit isn't so active. My science officer who's out there somewhere, Francisco, we were on a trip to India. And on this trip to India, we're going to university to university, talking about brain health and things like that. And it's a fun trip. It's the first time to India. I've been there many times, hundreds of times. And we're getting ready to leave. 3 weeks into it, he starts speaking Hindi. I said, Francisco, when did you learn Hindi? He said, we've been here for 3 weeks. But he speaks 6 languages. He has the circuit. The way we learn is not what you think. When you're like me, and you've had children and then they have grandchildren, you notice these things, because when my kids were learning, you know, I didn't get a chance to really see how they were learning. Before I knew it, they were grown up, right? Things were happening. But my grandkids, I get to take some time. My son always goes, if I did that when I was little, you know, I said, no, Eli can get away with anything. You know, he actually told my wife, he says, everybody in their life needs to have somebody that just says yes all the time. And that's Grampy, you know. And he says, she goes, what am I? She goes, you always say no. And they say that even in our business, that I'm the gas pedal and she's the brake. You know, so she keeps me on the rails. So, but what happened was, we find out that these kids, 1 minute they're crawling on the ground, the next minute they're speaking in sentences. And you go, how did they learn that? They didn't go to English class. How did they do that? They were in a brainwave state called theta. When you're in that brainwave, not alpha, alpha's good, but theta's better. Theta is your inventive mind, but it's also something called hypermnesia, super memory states. You all have them. You go through them every day without any training with BrainTap. You just do it, hopefully. When you get a night's sleep, as you go through these different brainwave states, not only are you retraining and reconditioning your brain for a new day, processing your memories, concepts, and beliefs about the future, you're actually building up your neurotransmitter bank account. When you go into these alpha and theta states, which you should go into 7 or 8 times while you sleep, you're building up your acetylcholine, your GABA, all of these things that help you to stimulate your mental bank account. Because if you don't have these neurotransmitters, you can't think, act, or respond in life. That's what's happening out there. 2/3 of the world is not sleeping. And so they're not getting the production. So they can't learn. They can't think. They can't respond to life. Life happens to them instead of through them. That's why I'm saying that to you. You don't have to let life happen to you. You can embrace it and move through it. When I studied in China with another good friend of mine that's here, Terry, he took me to China so we could learn Tai Chi in the mountains of Wudong before COVID. And it was great. I felt like I was in a Chinese movie for 30 days. I got to work out in the temples and all of that. But then when you get home, I wasn't doing 8 hours a day of Tai Chi, so you don't get as good at it, right? So anything you do with intention over time, you're going to get better on. It's called spaced repetition. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to have you, again, back away from your tables, put your things down, put your feet flat on the floor. Shake your hands out so they're not touching. When you touch your hands, what we know is that you collapse the hemispheres of the brain. When you open them, now if it's not comfortable for you, do what's comfortable, but if you can do it, separate, don't cross your legs or your hands. And then, again, you're going to start, roll your shoulders back a little bit, kind of close your eyes, again, the same way we did before. Roll your eyes upward, slowly close them down. And with them closed, just roll your head slightly one way 2 or 3 times, and then stop it and roll it the other way. And then bring it back to center with your eyes closed. And just kind of rock your head back and forth until you find that perfect place. Imagine, visualize, your head is like a bowling ball sitting between 2 planks of wood, and it's balancing there. And as it balances there, take in a deep breath. Let that breath out with a sigh. That's right, a psychological sigh. Just let it go. Now this time, breathe into the mental count of 4 to yourself. And then at the peak of that breath, breathe out to the mental count of 8. And just push it right out. And imagine pushing it out of your heart center, out to the world around you. So you're breathing in to 4, and you're pushing it out through the heart center, through the body, out into the room. And when you get to 8, again, start the breath in to 4, and then again out to 8. This little exercise, continue doing that as I speak, breathing in to the mental count of 4 and breathing out to the count of 8 is exercising your nervous system. When you breathe in, you're triggering your sympathetic system. Fears and frustrations might arise in your mind, just let them go. It's perfectly natural. Like watching a leaf fall from a tree, just let it go. Those thoughts don't control you, and you don't need to control them. And then as you breathe out, you're sharing that energy with your environment. No place you need to be, nothing needs to be done. You continue that cycle, exercising the nervous system, training the nervous system. And as you let it go, begin to think of what you do today that motivates you to work. Things you love to do that you don't even get paid for, like a hobby. But instead of doing the hobby, think of the emotion that you get or derive from being in that space. There's a sensation, there's a feeling. Whatever that feeling is, breathe that in now. And let it fill the spaces in your body so that you begin to anticipate, accept, and honor every cell, every system, every organ of your body. And as you continue to breathe in the finest air from the room around you, and breathe out all feelings of lack, limitation, and breathe out that energy out into the world, just being relaxed, being here now. Begin to think, just for a brief moment, of what you've heard over the last 60 minutes. And as you make that review, you're remembering the 1, 2, or 3 things that you thought, wow, I could apply that in my life. I could include that in my lecture. I could teach that to my family, friends, or coworkers. And place it on the timeline known as your future. You have a future filled with infinite possibilities. In fact, for each of you separately and now together, there are no limitations in consciousness. So allow yourself permission to step into that space between the tick and the tock of the clock, that space where time expands and dilates, so that you can visualize and then realize a lofty goal. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it will be for you specifically, so I want you to think about it in this way. I want you to imagine that you're there 1 year from today. You're meeting the people at the table you're with, and it's the next biohacking convention, and you've done something marvelous with your life. You've transformed some part of your behavior, your attitudes, your beliefs, your financial state, your spiritual acknowledgement, whatever is most meaningful for you, and you're having a conversation with them in the future. It's already happened. You don't have to do anything, and you're there now. Imagine the experience is bright and brilliant, colorful in your mind's eye. Imagine as if a Hollywood producer stepped into the experience and put your favorite music in the background like a movie, and then step into it. Be in the experience, noticing and speaking your truth. The change happened through you, because of you. You saw it in your mind, you organized it in your thoughts, you visualized it in your everyday reality, and you're there now. Breathing it in now. Remember, breathing in to the mental count of 4. And breathing out to the count of 8. Just let it go. Just becoming aware of the feeling, the sensation of being. Noticing the sounds around you, the movement in the room. And knowing that if you can visualize it in your mind, organize it in your thoughts, you can own it in your heart. And anything you want to achieve starts first with what does it take to motivate you to work. After all, you have a powerful mind, one that can do an infinite number of things of importance for you with a simple thought, releasing neurochemicals you've never even dreamed of that will have you feeling good while others are feeling bad, because you choose your own space, your own place in this universe. You control your own remote control. It's okay for others to do whatever they do, but you own your emotional state. You choose to be balanced. You notice your relationships, that there are gainers in your life. People, when you're around them, your light gets brighter, their light gets brighter, and it's a great relationship. There are also drainers in your life. You'll find creative ways to distance yourself or re-educate them through your experiences, not by telling them anything, not by asking them to do anything, but you simply being who you are changing the world. As you change yourself, you're changing the world around you. Like a bubble that continuously expands, your influence expands with you. And you're there. And in this dream, you're activating that inner part of your nature that says, this is a very short time here. Just moments ago, you were getting up and going to school for the very first time. You remember the smell of the pencils for the first time, the paper when you pulled it out of the folder, the experiences on the recess. That was just an eye blink ago, and you're here now. You have a choice, a chance to transform your life by transforming your thoughts. And it starts with you. And when you're ready to transform your life in an infinite number of ways, from any one moment in time, I want you to take a few deep breaths back, and again, counting yourself back from 1 to 3. At the count of 3, say to yourself, wide awake, feeling fine and in perfect health, feeling better than ever before. And as you slowly return this next little exercise, because we need to keep exercising the nervous system, 70% of your nervous system is between your ears. So when people talk about the nervous system, they're not talking about the spine, which is the keyboard to the brain. They're really talking about your brain. 70% of your nervous system is in your brain. That's what we need to change and transform. And one of the best ways to do that, remember I talked about yoga, but one of the best ways to do that is something called laughter yoga. There's something we can do. So I'm going to ask you, we all said we were going to play at 100%, right? 100%, say 100%? Okay, 100%. So what I want you to do is we're going to first do something called greeting laughter. So what I want you to do is I want you to greet somebody. Ha, 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 ha. Everybody stand up. Ha, ha, ha. Stand up. Ha, 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 ha. You're meeting. Ha, 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 ha. You're just laughing. Ha, 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 ha. Just, ha, 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 ha. Just really get into it. Ha, 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 ha. Okay, now the next yoga, the next laughter yoga is called gradient laughter. So, ha, 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 ha. So you're going to start off low, ha, 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 and just do that with each other. Just say that, just work it out, do whatever you need to do. Get that going, ha, 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 ha. Keep going. Now the next one is called cell phone laughter. This is something you can do when you see somebody you don't want to talk to. You just put your cell phone up. It's the funniest thing you've ever heard. Okay, now the next yoga is lion laughter. So you're going to walk into so you're acting like a lion, like the one on Wizard of Oz. Just start doing, come on, get into it. It's a stretch. Come on. Okay, now the last one I'm going to teach you. There's more of these. There's like 14 of them if you search out the internet. And we're not done yet, but this one's called silent laughter. So I want you to look. Just go ahead and practice that one. This is called neural priming because our next exercise is going to challenge you. It's going to challenge every fiber of your being. But if you do it, you will lose something that you've been carrying maybe since you were a child. One fear, one expression, one thing that really you are scared of, something that you fear happens. You don't have to tell anybody what it is. But there's something each of you have, and we're going to teach you a technique, because when I learned it, it transformed my life. And I've done this with in my centers. We had 108 locations. We used to do it every week. People could come on their own, and pretty soon we couldn't hold it in our clinics because too many people wanted to play it. And what we want to do is we want to teach you a mantra, a fear into power mantra. Okay, what I mean by this is you're in NLP. Anybody here ever heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? I was fortunate when I was younger. My dad is one of these believers that if you don't keep growing, you start to rot. And so I was trained by 67 of the people that I read their books. If I read their books and I wanted to take their training, my dad would send me. And I would get a chance to learn with all the great people that were out there. And one of them was teaching this mantra. And it's called the ha-ha mantra. Okay, so what I want you to do, now to play this, I'm going to play the role of your teacher, your sensei. But the reality is it's got to come from you. So I'm going to say ha. I want the whole audience to say ha. I'm going to say ha. You're going to say ha. I'm going to say ha. You're going to say ha. 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 Now do it on your own. Now we're going to be practiced. Now what I want you to do is I want you to keep that going as fast as you can, both sides. Ha, 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 ha. Look at each other. Ha, 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 ha. You really get going. Ha, 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 ha. Now what I want you to do is remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. What was that like when you remembered your greatest fear? Now again, ha, ha, keep going now. It's going to be a little harder. Ha, ha, keep going. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Keep going, keep going, keep coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. Ha, ha, ha. Come on, louder. I don't really get it. Look, ha, ha, ha. Remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. See how much longer that took? What we're doing is we're collapsing the neural pathways to that fear. That fear isn't real. It's false evidence appearing real. The only two fears we've ever had as humans when we were born is the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Other than that, we made them all up. So again, one more time. Ha, 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 ha. Come on, really get going. Remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. Remember your greatest fear. Okay, all right. Remember your greatest fear. Okay, so if I hear this when I'm walking down the hallway, I know I succeeded. When I'm going to my room tonight, get in front of the mirror. When my kids were younger, they knew if we used to do a lot of big trips. My wife had a really good childhood. I didn't. So she was always bragging about her dad, take him on these 2 weeks vacation. So I said, screw that, I'm going to do 6 weeks. And then I did 8 weeks. And we just have everybody else run the office and we go on these crazy vacations. And they would say, we're leaving out of town, and they've got a TV to watch videos. And this is back when they had we had an RV and they had tapes. And we don't even get out of town. They go, I'm bored. You ever heard that from young people? If you ask my grandkids, they'll say, there's no boring times, there's only boring people. We need to make you more interesting. Because you have so much going on right now. If I get an idle moment, that is awesome. And there's a saying in the Boy Scouts that says, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Because you're always thinking about something. You might as well think about something that's positive. If you see that fear coming up, laugh at it. You're the creator. Blow out that circuitry. It doesn't own you. You don't have to own it. So I'm going to show you something. Remember at the very beginning I said everybody has a plan till they get hit. So I've been doing lectures for doctors for years since I sold my franchise in 2006 and flying around the country, and I invented a piece of technology called the NeuroCheck. And we can check 9 different parameters of the nervous system in as little as 5 minutes. And it's a clinical grade. We actually, Francisco and I, Dr. Sadral, we were just part of a group that got voted, for India, we just got Researchers of the Year on meditation, doing pranayama yoga, using this device. So thank you. Yeah. And if you're in California, we're going to bring Dr. Varun out to talk about it because he's really into the self-realization fellowship. So we all are too. We all know about that. And so I said, we'll set it up so you can come out to Southern California. We'll do some talks. And so if you're in that area, we'll let you know when he's coming out. This guy is incredible because what happened when we first met him, and I showed him the BrainTap and what we're doing, he says, Patrick, you're cheating. And I said, Varun, what do you mean? He says, well, gurus take 30 years to do this, and all you got to do is put this helmet on, and they're in that state. That's cheating. I said, Varun, have you ever used a candle to meditate? He said, of course I have. I said, you're cheating. He said, what do you mean? I said, that just happened to be the technology you had back in the day. That candle is flickering at 10 hertz frequency. Guess what 10 hertz frequency is? Alpha. The mirror neurons in our brain are exposed to a 10 hertz frequency flashing. Our brain cycles to it and mimics it. Your brain is like this. If you and I were on a spaceship and we were moving toward Earth, the Earth has a frequency of 0.5 to 100. Your brain has an evoked potential of 0.5 to 100, meaning wherever you're at on the planet, you're going to sync to its environment. So I asked him, I said, Varun, have you ever meditated in the Himalayas? Oh yeah, I've meditated. Oh, it's so great. You go there, it's just wonderful. And I did. I got to meditate in one of the caves. The rishis got enlightened, and it was awesome. You know, just the energy, and it's like a PMF machine on steroids. You know, you're just sitting there because that's really all it is. You're sitting there. It's an isochronic tone generator. And I said, Varun, you're cheating. He goes, what do you mean? I said, that mountain is resonating at 7.8 hertz frequency. That happens to be theta. Theta is the precursor to GABA. GABA is the precursor to DMT. DMT is how we hallucinate or have spiritual experiences. We liberate our consciousness. That happens because of nature. So I said, well, what if I told you that we're just mimicking those frequencies? And guess what this planet is? It's a light sound generator and vibration. That's all it is. At the very core, every cell, every system, every organ of your body is teeming with energy and vibration. So he said, how can you prove that? I said, well, I showed him this equipment. So what I'm going to show you is this is me, just a second. This is me leaving New Bern, North Carolina. The one that's 71% stress levels, which is between the 10 and 100. That's really good. I'm just getting ready to get on an airplane. I'm not as good as I could be. I land from North Carolina to California. I land, and now I'm 180 stress points. I don't feel anything. I'm just sitting on a plane. I didn't drink like some people. I didn't eat on the plane. Basically, I sat on the plane watching a movie or something like that. On this experiment I did with even those EMF underwear that you buy, it didn't work very well, you can see. You know, my body still got hit. I was wearing the t-shirt too, by the way, and the hat. I was invisible to EMFs, but it's still something got me, because when you get up in that airplane, every hour in an airplane is like getting an x-ray. That's why you should be taking iodine, overdoing iodine when you get on the airplane. I did that too, and it still didn't help. So at the bottom is, how fast does my nervous system regulate? Just like heart rate variability, we know it's more than heart rate variability. You have to have nervous system variability. We all know people, I know it's no one in this room because you've worked on yourselves, but there are people that actually get stressed out in the morning, and you talk to them in the evening, they're still talking about that thing they were stressed out in the morning. They don't know how to dysregulate their nervous system. That's why I believe the mental health issues we have in the world are not all psychological. A good number of them are physiological. We all know people that start exercising and they become positive, right? Because that movement gets the brain to work. So what happened? I land in California, I do a BrainTap session. Boom, I'm better than I was. How did that happen? My parasympathetics lit up because I just did a BrainTap session. 20 minutes. Now we did a study with pilots that flew from San Francisco to China. They go over 7 light zones, and I don't call them time zones because time has nothing to do with it. It's light from the sun that's telling your cells what to do. When I left North Carolina and I landed in California, my body went, what the hell? We were just on the Serengeti and now we're in the UK or something. You know, the body didn't know what to do because the light was different, the frequencies. That light from the sun is telling our body what to do. But afterwards, you can see I brought everything back better than it was. Now, will that last? No. Your nervous system will update every 72 hours. It's just mine regulates really good because I've done this. You know, I've been asked a long time. I was just on a radio show just recently, and they asked, is this addictive? I said, I don't know. I've been doing it since 1986. You know, so I don't know if it's addictive. So this is where you'd expect my brain was 100%. That's 100% neuroactivity in my hippocampus. We can measure ATP production in the brain. When I landed, I was only 40%. It took 60% of my internal resources, and I just sat on the plane. I even took a little nap, meditated, thinking that it was going to do something. My brain waves didn't change that much because I can manipulate those. I've been using brain games and brain tools since I was a kid. And then what happened when I landed? 100% brain back. Now that GABA you see, the gamma at the end, how many people have read a study? There was one by Lou Tai at MIT. They came out with a $10 million machine that increases gamma by 6%. Francisco and I went to visit her because the average on BrainTap is 21%, and it only costs $700. They created a $10 million room to do it. Your brain is able to do that because every time you pass over the alpha bandwidth and the theta bandwidth, you have an explosion of gamma and you have an explosion of delta. Your brain re-regulates itself. Your brain is designed to heal. But we have to give it the right nutrients, we have to give it movement, and we have to give it time to do it. That's where brain fitness comes in. So most people think that neurotransmitters are just created out of thin air. They're not. They're created by physiological states of the mind. They're made in the gut, but they're produced in the brain. The brain tells the body what to do, but the one controller that most people are becoming more and more aware of is the heart. Your heart has 40,000 specialized cells called neutrino cells. It's a brain. It has thoughts, it has emotions, it has memories. That's why transplant people will get the same diet as the person that they got the heart from, because that brain went with them. It's in your body right now. That's why I'm having you visualize your heart. We need to open it up and feed that part of your body. That's the controller, not the other. And by the way, when we had one question we asked every patient that came through the doors at Positive Changes, which was the name of my old franchise. We asked them, do you enjoy your job? On a scale from 0, I hate my job, to 10, I love my job, 92% were below 3 on that scale. They hated their job. Now, these weren't you. These were people that were in pain psychologically. So, you know, it's a little bit different. But they didn't like their job. So I'm going, you spend a third of your life doing it. Why would you keep doing that? The brain is supposed to be an infinite field of possibility, not a prison. If you don't like what you're doing, quit. I guarantee you something better will show up. Some people wait to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. You can decide today to have a breakthrough and do whatever you want. I remember when I moved to Arizona when I had kind of an awakening of things in the 80s before I developed the first MC square, because I really love Einstein. The cover of my first book has Einstein flying through space. And when I was there, I finally had made enough money that I had 6 months saved of what it would cost me to live, and I quit. And I was working for the Mormon Group, which was one of the largest corporations in the world at the time. And they said, we've given you all the raises you needed, you know, why are you leaving? I said, I'm going to go become a hypnotherapist. And I was still in school, so I knew I could do that without having a license. And he goes, a hypnotherapist? What is that? They thought it was crazy. They actually didn't think I was going to quit. And it was tough for a little bit. But I guarantee you I wouldn't be here right now if I stayed into something secure. I had to go out and chance and risk. Now, I'm not saying go quit your job if you don't have something else planned. I trained with my dad and Dr. Paul Adams for years before I did that. But the process is you got to do things. So what happens is you got to find something that works and test it. With BrainTap, over the years, we get questioned. We don't get questioned anymore, I can guarantee you that, because almost every neurological doctor that does functional neurology knows about BrainTap and uses it for recovery. So at the bottom is the metabolic system. Your neurotransmitters control how your metabolism works. Your body right now in your liver is housing 25 grams of sugar. I don't care if you don't eat sugar. If you have a stressful event, guess what happened? You just ate a candy bar. All that liver dumped into your system, and you're just sitting at your computer playing a video game. You have no idea that you're pumping 25 grams. Now your liver becomes a sugar generator instead of a purifier of your blood. Your brain no longer gets the ketones it needs to think, act, and respond appropriately. Now, you're disassociated. This is wonderful. But the reality is that your body is suffering from that. That's why one of my favorite articles that I wrote on the internet is why stress is more fattening than chocolate. Your liver is the problem. And it doesn't need to be cleansed. It needs to be less stress. Your physiology needs to be less stress so you're not triggering the sugar production. It's there to protect us if a lion comes up behind us or if we have to flee something. But the average person looks at their phone over, I guess, 300 times a day. So look at what happened to me when I landed in California. Look at my metabolism. That's one stressful event. So if you're gaining weight and you're wondering why, I'm doing everything, I'm eating all the right foods, I'm exercising, I'm thinking all the right thoughts, but you're not really. Because sometimes it's not what you eat, it's what's eating you. So I had to have something. So here's what happens after you do BrainTap. When I was featured in People magazine in 2006, we didn't have a diet to our program. Now we do much better. There's a lot more knowledge out there. We do teach it now. But at the time, there was no diet. We said go to GNC and let those 19-year-old experts tell you what you needed. But look at the metabolism. My body is now a fat burning machine, not a sugar storing machine. Stress makes your body a sugar storing machine, makes your brain dysregulate, causes dementia, then Alzheimer's. And it doesn't matter what you do. You could be eating the world's greatest supplements. You could be doing all the PMF. You could be doing everything you want. But if your brain's not right, your body's not going to regulate right. Like the Sicilians say, the fish stinks from the head down. So you got to get your head right. Most people know that and they think they can just do an affirmation. I'm telling you, it's not possible. Because we measured people in India when we were there. We measured gurus. And we showed them we could take somebody who never meditated and do the same thing the gurus did. And I'm not saying they're going to the same place, but they're going to the same physiological place. Because there's technology today. Ancient traditions, modern technology. Everything you see over there, I can go back to the Vedas and show you where it was at. From PMF to light therapy, they had something called Chronos therapy. If you were to have a brain trauma or have some depression in 10,000 years ago in India, they would tell you to wake up in the morning and sit outside 2 hours before sunset until the sun rises. How did they know that there's more infrared light hitting the planet 2 hours before sunrise? And if you've ever done photobiomodulation in the brain, you know that infrared light is what we need to feed our brain. They called it Chronos therapy. So we're just repeating, we just have better tech. And with that better tech, we can get better results. This is the one that I really like because this is the heart rate. My heart rate, that coherency between my brain and my gut and my head is 100% when I leave. Then I get there and holy shit, what happened? I didn't feel anything. My age was 31 when I left. My wife likes that part. When I landed, I was 53. I aged in 4 hours. That's what stress does to you. Ever seen the presidents? I wouldn't want that job regardless. They go in as young men and they leave as old farts. As Wayne Dyer said, never let an old person inhabit your body. That's one of my favorite quotes by him. What happened when I landed? I'm back to being a 31-year-old. That study that I told you about with the people leaving San Francisco to China, we proved to them that what they would get in recovery in 4 days, they could get in 4 hours if, while they were flying to China, they would do one BrainTap session. At the time it was called Zen frames. I've invented 16 different devices. So they did this one, and they did it in the back of the plane, and then when they landed, they had to do another one. 4 hours later, they were right back where they were when they left San Francisco. And the reason they were doing that was these pilots were using all sorts of drugs, some legal, some illegal, to disengage. They didn't know how to disengage on their own. But remember, you have the most powerful pharmacy. You just need to be able to trigger it. The nice thing about this technology, too, is that we made it so that we can measure your results over time. Now, this technology is $6,000, so not many individuals use it, but our doctors use it, and they can show at the clinical level what's going on. I got this new thing called the No Watch, which I'm not being endorsed by them, but I bought it because it follows me around all day long, and when I have a stressful event, it registers it all day. So it's not like I just get my sleep score or whatever. That's the kind of tech that we're going to have, because I don't know what's stressing me out. For me, if you look at my score, if you say, show me your score, I have no stress. I have no high stress, no medium stress. My wife says, that's crazy. You look like you do at times. Every one of us does. And when things don't go right, or I just flew back from London yesterday, so, I should be stressed right now. I should not be able to stand up here and talk for 2 hours. This is easy, because you get back into the light zone of the place you're at. 1 minute. So what happens? Bring it back to 100%. Now, we all love toys, right? So I'm gonna unpack some things before we do our last activation here. Biohacking's been around a long time. In fact, I didn't know I was biohacking until 4 years ago, or 5 years ago when I did my first biohacking convention. I just thought I was helping people's brains. Because every brain is either destined to get better or get worse, depending on a lot of things, but the main thing is your thinking. Number 2 is the food you're consuming, and number 3 is the activity you participate in. But all 3 of them need to be done. If you don't do all 3 of them, neither one of them works the same. You can't just think your way into success. You've got to do your way into success. So by doing, these things happen. So I'm going to just unpack some things. First of all, when we talk about anchoring for success, if you want to disengage a behavior, you've got to find the opposite behavior. Whatever that is. If you're hungry, find something that makes... The one thing you can do most of the time, if you're hungry, you're not really hungry. You're thirsty. There's a really good book called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. When you dehydrate your brain even 3%, it loses its brain function by over 40%. So you should be drinking half your body's weight in ounces of water. You should also, if you really want to get your brain working right, eat fruits that are dark in nature, because they have certain byproducts in those. And so instead of having strawberries, which are still a low glycemic fruit, eat blueberries and things like that. There are different things you can do, and I know there's going to be people on this stage that are going to talk about all those things. But we also have to get up in the morning and engage our nervous system. This is a brain wave that right now is truly suffering. It's called SMR, sensory motor rhythm. It's the one, as we get better looking and more intelligent with age, that's the one we lose, okay? That's the one that has to do with your vestibular system. We've actually proven, we've done balance exercises with people against people doing BrainTap. And when we train their SMR without doing any physical activity, just train their brain, we found it better. That's why somebody by the name of Kathy Smith, some of you might know her, she's an exercise physiologist. She's like Tony Robbins for exercise. And she's one of my friends. And she came up with a walking program, and we encoded all those walking programs with the SMR frequency, because you can be awake doing that training. It's a brainwave just before beta, in alpha. There's a little bandwidth there. That's the one that suffers as we age. And I'm going to talk more about these things in my talk. But these are things that happen. Now, submodalities, if you can remember back, and we're going to do another little exercise before we end today. When you think about something you really truly want, if we can make it colorful and bright. Now, you have to figure out if you read one of my books, it tells you the sequence, because it's almost like a computer code. Each one of you has your own code, so I'm just talking in general right now. Let's say that you are thinking about something you want, to make it simple, like a car or something like that. If you think of that car in color, you have a better chance of achieving it. Now, does anybody in here have a big screen black and white TV? No. I mean, even if the superstore had one on sale for $99, I don't think they'd sell them. When I grew up, there were black and white TVs, for those that remember. I mean, that's what the kids got while the parents got to watch the color TV. But that's how it works. Now, how many people in here have a mono stereo in their car? You remember those? Do they even sell those anymore, like AM radios? That was my first radio. You know, it was a little ball on a chain, and it was AM, and I could listen to the Indy 500 on it. You know, and I thought that was great. But we like stereo because we like surround sound. So if something you want in color, with sound, with your favorite music in the back, if you remember what I took you through in the first 2 activations, that's what we're doing. We're training the brain. And then we want you to step into it, because anything you associate with, you magnetize, organize, and bring about capacities. How many people here have thought about something, besides being on Google, because that's cheating? When you think about something or talk about something, it shows up. Like you talk about somebody and then they call you on the phone or they text you. That's because all of us in this room are sharing the same information. Consciousness is the underlying reality of all things. When you get better, they've proven that you improve every 7 generations backwards and forwards. And by the way, ancient tradition even says that. So we're just rediscovering it through genetics. When you're sitting in the space where you're seeing it in your mind's eye, hearing it in your mind's eye, feeling it as if you're there, you're magnetizing it into your reality. And what that means is that you're more open to the possibility, because the infinite number of possibilities exist anyway. How many people have bought a car when you bought it? I still remember my wife when minivans first came out, and she bought this minivan, and she calls me from the dealership. There's no cell phones then. She calls me, she says, I got this van, it's so beautiful. Nobody has one. They're so great. And I said, I'm thinking to myself, in an effort to make money, I think they made more than one of these things. But she drives it home, we get in the car, and we're driving. I said, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. She never noticed them before. They call this top of the mind awareness. The reason that you do things like BrainTap, mindfulness, and you visualize visual boards and things like this is to keep it on the top of your mind. Very quick story. I would have never had my franchise if I'd listened to my dad, because this is a conversation 2 therapists have. We're sitting in our house in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm single at the time, so I'm spending a lot of time with my parents. It's free meals. And, you know, that's the way that it works. And we're talking about how great we are, because that's the way therapists talk. You know, we're so good, but we're making no money, you know. And we're having this conversation. It's all going well. And then Dr. Paul Adams calls and talks to my dad and says, you know what, I want to set up a center in Phoenix, Arizona. Would you like to work with me on that? My dad promptly says, no, we're going to do our own thing, and hangs up. I said, are you kidding me? You're a teacher of the Silva method. We just sat here and talked about it, and you manifested it right now. He says, oh, we want to do our own thing. We want to do it with him. I said, what do you mean? He's got a very successful, stopped smoking at the time. This was back in the 80s when people smoked. And so we were talking, and so I said, Dad, would you mind if I call Paul back up and tell him that I'd like to help him? He said, I don't care. So I called Paul up. I said, what do you need? I FedExed him that the next day. He said, Ben, you're serious, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. I want to learn whatever you have. Just teach me. Within 4 years, I had bought that company from him. I sold it in 2002, and I'm able to do this now. Because that one opportunity I didn't let pass by, because it was in my awareness. What are you letting pass by that's inside of your prevailing awareness? And I tell my dad all the time, I said, you know, Dad, when you went to that Silva meeting and you learned how to relax, this is before he died a few years ago, I said, you know how many lives you've changed? He goes, what do you mean? I said, because of what we've done together, my dad started it, I'm still doing it, millions of people all over the world are being changed because he decided to go get help. That's why you'll find in my one book how I was blessed to be the son of an alcoholic. It wasn't a curse. Whatever happened to you is meant to happen to you so you can get your mission on track. You overcome that, you teach it to the world, you've got your life mission. That's why you're going through it. So you can teach it to somebody else and say it's not all that bad. You are a genius. Now, just so you understand why I say that to people, in modern mythology, they say that every one of us has talents and skills. And if we use those talents and skills, then we're called a genius. It doesn't mean you're good at math and science. It means that you have a skill, you have an ability. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more activation with you. They're going to put the music onto the background. Now, this music you're hearing is not just music, and it's not just an algorithm. It's one that's been proven in science. When you get something like this on the internet, I'm going to tell you right now, most of them are bullshit. Because if you listen to the same track more than 3 times, your brain goes away. It's like if you have a friend that lives next to a paper mill, and you go over and see him and go, my God, this smells terrible. How can you stand to live here? And they go, what do you mean? I don't even smell it. That's because the nervous system is very good at saying, well, if they're not going to move from here, this is what happens with mold in your house. Your body's telling you something, but you just keep living there. It's telling you to get up and move. So we need to keep changing that algorithm. That's why even in the Gamma series, we have over 40 sessions to teach you Gamma without any words, and we have hundreds of them with words. So this one is one that's about divine love, to get you to tune into your heart and be present for everyone in this conference. Because the more you're present, the more you're going to learn. So again, put your feet flat on the floor. Roll your shoulders back. Roll your eyes upward. Slowly close your eyes. And as you slowly close down, take a deep breath in. Let that breath out with a sigh. That's right. Another deep breath in. And let it out with a sigh. One more. Physically in and then out. Shift your attention now down to the bottom of your feet. Notice how energy follows thought. And just as you thought of the feet and then the ankles, the blood begins to flow freely there. Your circulation increases. Relaxation follows. And that sensation, that feeling of relaxation begins to move with each breath that you take up through the calves and shins into the knees, allowing that part of your mind that's capable of change to be activated, so that upon awakening you can listen with new ears, see with the brightness of new eyes, and experience the world with the aliveness of your new body. You have a new body. Notice it through the thighs and into the hips, releasing the stress and tension, and begin to create a sensation, a feeling of gratitude about your body. While you do what you do every day, your body continues to do what it needs to do. Your heart continues to beat. Your nervous system continues to function. Your brain continues to think thoughts even when you're not thinking, you're thinking. When you're sleeping, running, walking, entertaining, or eating, your body continues to do all the things it needs to do. Shift your attention to your hands. Visualize the energy moving down from the brain, down across the shoulders and arms, into the hands, and feel that tingling sensation that begins there. That feeling of no feeling as you let go of the physical restraints of gravity. Let it go and simply breathe. Notice with the rising and falling of your chest how each exhalation just drives your relaxation just a little bit deeper, further inside, where you're creating a space, a place for change, where you can see the opportunities, listen to the probabilities, and experience life to the fullest. This is your one day. And one day at a time, you can choose to do whatever you want to do. And today, you choose health. So feel the inner organs returning to their natural rhythmic function, from the heart to the liver to the kidneys, circulating new ideas and concepts within the body. Feel the large and small muscles of the back releasing. And imagine the spine opening up with energy flow. From the cerebral cortex down through the spine, the keyboard to the brain, sending energy out to the tips of the fingers and the bottom of the feet, allowing the neck and head area to relax as you focus now on your heart. Imagine your heart is a spark. And that spark represents your innate intelligence, your super consciousness. And as you focus on that heart with each exhalation, notice like blowing on an ember in a flame, it starts to get brighter and brighter, and the spark, your unique spark, you are here for a reason. There's no accidents, there's no happenstance, there's no mistakes. Everything that brought you to this moment in time was absolutely necessary to take you where you need to go today, tomorrow, and into the future. So bless this day. This day was created within you and around you by a power far greater than your conscious mind, far greater than conscious thought, and you get to play in the energy. So imagine that energy expanding into a bubble of possibility, that whoever steps into your space will learn what you know, and you're open to learn what they know. That's why we're here, to learn, to grow, to develop, and to prosper on all areas. Imagine taking what you've learned today and noticing the moment you begin to feel that sensation of fear instantly. You'll remember that it's perfectly natural to laugh. That fear is a part of the past. It's something to be concerned with, but nothing to control you with. You take notice of the environment and you change the things that you can. And you embrace those things you have no choice over. It's easy. Continue to breathe. Noticing that while you're breathing, you're noticing one new, unique thing about yourself. That healthy, happy thoughts, harmonious, positive thoughts allow you to breathe even deeper. And those old negative thoughts, those outdated beliefs, they slow down your breathing. In fact, for some of you, you might even stop. So let them go. You don't have to control them any longer. There's no reason to be trapped in the past. You can let them go. You are free to succeed. You are different, unique, and new. Every cell, every system, every organ knows exactly what to do in this moment in time. So release your need to control. There's nothing for you to control. There's everything for you to experience. So open up your mind to the experience that brought you to this convention. Imagine your most inner need, your most inner outcome, whatever that is, and you're there. Not really sure when it happened or how it happened, but you're there and it happened through you. You accepted that physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing by removing all the things that were false about you. Regardless of what your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your preachers, your teachers, no one really knows you like you know you. You are unique. There's never been another you in all of creation. So begin to take an inventory of who you are, the skills that you have and the skills that you're developing, and the life path and mission. And imagine that today is another day that allows you to express that mission through you as health, as harmony, as vitality to the world around you. You accept who you are at the very core of your heart, and it's broadcast out to your community, and they feel it as well, and you allow them space and place to grow, to change, and to develop. And from here, my voice is going to pause. As it does, I want you to spend some time in this future scenario. You're there 1 year from today, and you've done it. You're with a family member or a close friend, and you're doing something you physically enjoy, and it's bright, it's brilliant. It's as if Hollywood producers have all got together and colorized this experience just a little bit brighter than you remembered. And the music, it played in the background, activating that internal sense of reality that tells you if you can visualize it, you can realize it, and you step into it. And I want you to take this time to have that mental vacation. And in a moment, my voice will return. When it does, an hour of this relaxation time will have occurred. Just spend your time there, noticing the way you see internally, the way you hear, the way you experience things from the inside out, magnetizing health, harmony, and vitality into your environment. And when my voice returns, it will only cause you to become more relaxed, more comfortable with the processes of using your own mind, which is enormous. What your mind can do for you is no small thing. It is a big thing that can and will be done in a very easy and effortless way. In a moment, my voice will return. Simply allow the music in the background to guide you, to direct you, and keep you from harm. Noticing that sensation. Noticing that deep inner feeling, that sense of belonging. And imagine you could bring that sense of belonging, that sense of fellowship, that community that you know is part of what we do here. Allow yourself to merge back into the room. Imagine that energy coming back into your body, but be free to share your energy with those you have dinner with, lunch with, conversations with or about. Imagine learning now with those mirror neurons from each speaker. And when you're ready, your eyes will open. And when your eyes open, you know exactly what to do now. We've practiced it once. And then you did it once again, which meant you've done it twice differently. And you just did it again. So go ahead and start that process of learning by saying to yourself, wide awake, feeling fine and in perfect health, feeling better than ever before. And this is so. Thank you all.